All right, cheesers, welcome to another HRL recap. Today we're doing week 7 recap. So week 7 was pretty interesting with the results, and I think it sets up the next week pretty nicely to be one of the most important weeks in the season. So I thought it was a good time to do another recap. So first race, Sebring Short RX, the first hog race of the season, and funnily enough, we're going to have the second hog race of the season coming up back-to-back weeks after this one. And then there may be a third hog race. Not 100% sure on that yet, but at least 2. And again, we got the first one in here. Next one is literally going to be next week, so kind of funny with how that worked out. Yeah, I know the spacing doesn't look great, but needed time to work on the tracks, so that's why. But yeah, so Sebring Short, how did it go for the first hog race? Pretty decent. The heat races, really good battles in the heat races, actually. And then in the main, it was more so about the Joker strategy. And the top 3 fight was actually really close for a lot of the race. Detail ended up taking the win, did a really good job keeping 4 tires on the ground. I had a really bad crash at one point. I think Soul had a really bad flip as well. So yeah, we definitely both had chances of winning the race as well, but those flips really slowed us down, and Detail kept his tires on the ground and ended up working out. He was able to take the win. But yeah, the top 3 gap, it was actually really close. And it was actually really competitive, and I think the Joker strategy with how things worked out, you know, not being behind people, was actually pretty important with that battle. But in the end, Detail ends up taking the win. I ended up taking 2nd, Soul 3rd, Slaunch 4th, and Roman running out the top 5. Barrel Bluffs 2nd race, H4 pure terrain track. This was a spicy one, hard one to pass on, hard one to gain time on. So a very interesting race to have it be the Moto 2 with that invert. And yeah, led to some spicy results. In the end, this was a crazy end of the race where Camby, after running in 2nd, like behind iPod, basically the entire race, Camby finally took the lead on the last lap and took the win from iPod in pretty exciting fashion. So unfortunate for iPod, as this is now iPod's 4th podium, and I believe, I want to say, 3rd second place result. So yeah, that's tough. But yeah, iPod knocking on the door of getting that win. And yeah, even though it sucks that he's been like super close and then again, like losing this one literally on the last lap, really unfortunate. I think it's gotta be, it still needs to be said, like, hasn't raced in so long and he's getting these results. Like, they're not super consistent yet, but it's still pretty impressive to see. And if he keeps running up front in certain races, I mean, eventually he's going to get one. So, on the other hand, very huge for Camby. I think Camby's first win was kind of a shock win. Well, maybe not so much anymore, because now it's 2 on the board, right? Now it's 2 on the board. And Camby ran a really good race. And the last lap move was very clean, very exciting. That one was definitely worth watching back. I think that was probably one of the highlights of the season, honestly, was their late battle. I ended up getting 3rd in this one. Roman 4th, and Hunter with a top 5. So the overall results, ended up taking the overall with 29 points, and then Detail and Camby taking 2nd and 3rd with 26 apiece. Roman 4th with 25, iPod and Slaunch 5th and 6th with 23, and then Soul, Hunter, and Blake 7th, 8th, 9th with 22. Everybody was like super close in points in this night. And then finally rounding it out, Coop 10th with 14. So yeah, just very different races, and it ended up leading to, again, like the points, everybody was just like so close, so that's why you see so many tiebreakers there. That being said, some of these results still spiced up the points. We'll look at those in a moment a lot, for sure, especially with the wildcard points too, so I'm excited to take a look at that. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So obviously, I extend the points lead on Detail a bit. That being said, that second race will likely be a mulligan for him, and then in the other race, he picked up a win. So it's probably not as bad as it looks. Like, he's got the wins, he's got the more, like, top end, but he also has, like, the worse, like, bottom finishes. So it'll be interesting to see how this lead battle ends up once the mulligans come into play, because with him having the more wins, and with having the worst mulligans, I think it'll probably even it out quite a bit. And I think it'll probably be a lot closer than it looks right now. Like, it looks like I took a pretty good advantage after this week. But yeah, with the mulligan system and the fact that he got a win, I think it's actually not as big of a night for me as it appears. So yeah, it's one of those things, again, you just never know until those come into play. So we're just going to have to kind of stick around and keep our eyes on it, and eventually the mulligans will come into play, and we'll see how that champ battle actually looks. It'll probably bring Slaunch a bit closer too. I don't know if it's going to be close enough quite yet. He'll probably have to step it up a decent amount in the back half of the season, but it'll definitely make him closer for sure. So yeah, that's the look at the top 3. And then now we go into, again, the spiciest Grand Finals qualification battle that we've had all year by far, and it continues to develop. Camby, 4th in points. Obviously has a really decent points night. Well had a fantastic wildcard points night. That's 3 more bagged for Camby. So I think Camby easily is sitting the best of these guys right now, because Camby has the points and the wildcard points at the moment. So even if Camby has like a fall off, Camby potentially has the wildcard points to fall back on to make that Grand Finals qualification. So yeah, Camby really trying to make a good bid for it, and so far doing a really nice job on both fronts. And then you go to Roman, and Roman's actually in a really good position too. Now, Roman may not be in the best position wildcard point-wise, but you look at this. Roman missed 2 races, and he's only 8 points behind Camby. So, like, realistically, with mulligans, Roman's probably ahead of Camby. Roman's probably still 4th in actual points. And I think that's what Roman needs to do. Roman's wildcard points are solid, but not as good as some of these other contenders. Roman's in a really good actual points position. I think Roman needs to try to continue that. That's Roman's path, right? I think Camby can kind of take either path right now. I think Roman needs to focus on those actual points. Soul is in an interesting spot. Soul's in an interesting spot because iPod is only 10 points behind Soul, but kind of a similar scenario with how Roman and Camby are. iPod missed a week, so iPod's probably still ahead of Soul on points. When it comes to wildcard points, though, Soul's really been turning it around, and Soul has 5 of those. So even if Soul does drop out to iPod, Soul has 5 wildcard points. That, if you look at where everybody else is in terms of wildcard points outside of the top 6, Soul will likely be in a very good position there. So Soul's season has really turned around in the last couple weeks, and now he has the potential to still make it in on points. But if he doesn't, he's picked up enough wildcard points to where I think he's going to feel a lot better about taking that path as well. And, you know, iPod, it's interesting because iPod, you know, definitely has a very good shot of making it. But now he's in a weird position with missing that week. That's obviously going to hurt his actual points a bit, even though he's definitely still in that conversation. The wildcard points, 4 is still very solid. 4 is still very solid, but it's not as safe feeling as Soul or Camby's 5 and 6. And obviously iPod doesn't have the actual points to compete with Roman, right? They've both missed 2 races, but iPod's 13 points behind Roman. So iPod's in a very interesting position where I would still say he's in a good spot, but it's not, you know, it's not incredible. Like I think these 3 drivers are feeling very good about where they're at and having like multiple paths to making it in now. I think they're feeling very good about that. And I think iPod is the first driver realistically right now where he's in the hot seat. I think iPod has moved to the hot seat, essentially. That's kind of the way I'm looking at this. And yeah, we'll have to see how that develops. Hunter still staying very close, but Hunter needs to get in on points. Like realistically, only 1 wildcard point. It's probably not happening. Hunter needs to really nail some incredible points late in the season to make it into that grand final the way things are looking right now. Nightmare and Vulcan, they probably need to do it on wildcard, and luckily for them, they have 2 apiece, and Real Deal's on 3. And Vulcan and Blake have a slight points. Well, Blake has a big points advantage. Vulcan has a slight points advantage. So they can get in over Real Deal. But they need to show up, and they need to have like a really good night. Get a nice overall. Get a moto podium. Get something in there to help out that wildcard point situation. So Real Deal's still holding on to it. But not very secure. And as the races progress, I feel like it's starting to look less and less secure. But we'll still have to see how things pan out. But yeah, that point situation, still very interesting. I'm loving watching it week after week. I think that's part of the reason why I've been doing more recaps. And I'm loving seeing that we have like that legitimate battle going on. You know, I feel like it's been more, there's been like a chance at a battle, but it didn't quite happen in the previous seasons this year. This one's legit. And yeah, curious to see how it plays out. Quick update on the like series points. Pure terrain. You know, obviously there'll be a mulligan here eventually, but with Detail having a really rough night, I ended up taking the points lead in this one. And then Terrain Oval, still holding on to the points lead there. And then Motocross, Detail, still holding on to the points lead there. Slaunch making some gains, but Detail still with a good lead. And then Rallycross also moves into the lead in Rallycross. Overtakes that for myself. Really hot streak, 2 wins in a row. Yeah, so the series points, moving around a bit. Detail overtaking this one, me overtaking this one, and then we're both still maintaining these. And then Roman, close contender in Pure Terrain, Terrain Oval, Slaunch, Soul, and Detail, the contenders, I'd say. Motocross, Slaunch and myself, the contenders, to try to get over Detail there. And then Rallycross, like myself, Camby, Slaunch, and Roman. Still very close, these spots. All right, so that pretty much sums it up. Let's take a look at next week. All right, so again, next week is the last Triple Crown of the season. 3 races on the night, no heats, no heats. This is gonna be a fun one. We start off with Caribou Creek MX, a Reach MX made by Roman. Definitely recommend checking this one out, and Hog Vegas NRX made by myself on the Hogs. Definitely recommend checking both of those tracks out. I think Roman's Terrain Oval to end off the night. I think if you wanted to skip a track as far as prep goes, you could probably skip that one. It's probably one of the least skill gap Terrain Ovals of the season. I think that one's going to be very race crafty. So yeah, so I think if you wanted to, you know, a few of these recent Terrain Ovals have actually had like quite a bit of skill gap. I think that this one is more battle heavy. So if you wanted to skip, if you don't have as much time to prep, I would skip that and just get a quick glance at it on the race night, hopefully. Definitely peep Caribou Creek and Hog Vegas, though. Those tracks both have a lot going on. There's no heat races to warm up for them. So yeah, gonna be a lot on the line on those. I think for my own track, Hog Vegas, I think that the Joker strategy is going to be the race. Because I think there is a decent skill gap on the track, and I think there's time to be made, but it's very tight. I think that making passes is going to be even harder on this one than my previous Hog track, even though I think there's probably more time to be gained. So timing those Jokers, especially with the fact that it's going to be an invert start race, that's going to determine the race on this one. I'm certain of it. It's going to be the biggest factor. I know I always bring it up, and it's kind of like obvious. It gets kind of tiring saying it for RX races, but it's just true. You know, it's just the way things are. Caribou Creek, just not wrecking. It's a pretty rogue track in a few spots. I think it's very easy to make a mistake and flip over, and that's going to be pretty brutal. So just keeping 4 tires on the ground, and then the Terrain Oval at the end. Race crafty race. I think just taking your time and trying to get into the top 3 once you get into that late race stage will probably set you up for a good finish. All right, so yeah, season is starting to close. We're starting to get towards the end here, and again, this is the last, you know, Triple Crown huge night to pick up a lot of points, to pick up a lot of wildcard points. So I think this one's going to be very important for all of the battles in the points right now. And definitely highly recommend trying to show up to this race if you can. Because it's going to have huge implications, right? It's going to have huge implications. If you miss it, that's 3 potential races. That's 3 potential mulligans that you're losing out on. Definitely don't want to lose out on that. So yeah. And I really like these tracks. I think it'll put on for a really good race night. I think it's going to be absolutely nuts. having a triple crown with these tracks. But I'm looking forward to it. Hope you guys are too. Hope you guys enjoyed the recap. Yeah, I'll see you there for those races. And also, we have a special video from OpEx coming out, hopefully tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that too. All right, see you guys there.